We cannot wait to travel internationally again.
But will travel ever be the same? Will tourism ever recover? Is it even worth the risks?
In this video, we're going to share with you the current state of travel and tourism and what 2021 and beyond will likely look like for travelers and adventurers.
Yeah, so Jenny and I have a lot of big plans for 2021 and beyond, and we can't wait to share all those with you. But now, I read a report in Forbes magazine recently that in 2020, the travel and the tourism industry has taken a $1.2 trillion hit to their revenue, and almost 100 million jobs have been lost. And what's truly sad about that is that's people's livelihood, and some of those jobs will probably likely never come back, and some of those tourist destinations will probably never recover to their former glory. And, you know, I was working in Africa for the 6 months leading up to the COVID pandemic, and, you know, I met so many nice, just wonderful people, and it's really sad to think that those people probably don't have jobs anymore. Some of them maybe had to move on or move their families to somewhere else, or, you know, even look for completely different, you know, industries to work in, because just the service and the hospitality and the travel and tourist industry has taken such a big hit with 2020.
Yeah, some of the local economies rely really heavily on tourism. Some of the most popular tourist spots may never be the same. And I mean, can you imagine if our favorite tourist spots become ghost towns?
Yeah, and that's what a lot of CEOs and strategists are saying right now, is that travel and tourism just may never be the same ever again after 2020. And, you know, it's going to take years for people to get comfortable with being able to travel again. So right now, a lot of public health departments around the world are saying that if you want to travel, you have to self-quarantine for 14 days prior to flying. Then 72 hours before you go to the airport, you have to get a negative COVID test. You have to show that negative COVID test before you get on your flight, and possibly in your connections as you're going to your destination. And then once you get to your final destination, you may also have to quarantine in the country you're going to for 7 to 14 days. And then that local country's health department is basically going to monitor you and see if you have symptoms. So you're talking 21 to 28 days of self-quarantine before you can ever even start a vacation or an adventure.
We can't predict what the health officials are going to do, and we really hope that the vaccine is going to help.
Yeah.
And here are some trends that are being predicted for travelers for 2021 and beyond. Number 1, local and regional travel will continue to be an alternative.
Yeah, so we saw record numbers of people this year who really stayed local or regional. You know, they did more things like camping and overlanding and RVing, and, you know, that's really going to be a trend into 2021, where people are going to stay more in a local or regionalized area, and they're doing maybe, you know, a quick road trip to something that's nearby that they've maybe never seen before. Yeah, like I said in previous videos, for the last 7 to 8 months, my job had me locked down to a 125-mile radius, so we really had to get creative in, you know, places to go and visit. So things like national forests and national parks, and, you know, finding little towns out of the way, those pretty much became like our new weekend adventure.
You're seeing a lot of YouTubers embracing things like van life and RV life, overlanding and camping, as opposed to like international travel. And you're likely to see this trend continue into the future.
Yeah, you'll likely to see that regional travel will continue to be popular. So for like those of us here in the United States, people traveling up into Canada or down to Mexico, if the borders are open, of course. But people are going to be going into like neighboring countries to see places they've never maybe seen before. Yeah, so like us personally, we still haven't been to Banff and Jasper up in Canada, so we really want to do a road trip up and be able to check that out. And then I think, you know, we're also throwing around stuff like maybe we should do the Pan American Highway. I don't know, you know, we're still trying to figure that out.
Number 2, is travel necessary? I know that a lot of people and businesses are weighing, you know, the risks of travel versus like, is there alternatives to travel? I know that, you know, Lance and I, we've been working remotely and doing things like telehealth and Zoom meetings. Some organizations have already decided that they're going to have 100% of their staff working remotely, or maybe a small percentage of their staff working remotely permanently.
Yeah, which I think is pretty awesome. But I think on the flip side of that, that also means like the days of everybody flying out to a conference somewhere, packing in a hotel room, having those late night karaoke parties with the clients. I think those aren't going to be coming back anytime soon. You're going to see things like Zoom meetings and virtual conferences kind of become the industry standard. So I have a background in public health and epidemiology, and I can tell you that modern travel is one of the biggest spreaders of viruses and pandemics. It's something that infectious disease and emergency management people, it's our biggest fear, because if you look throughout history, kind of pandemics in the past, a lot of times they were able to stay, confined to a regional or local area because there wasn't the modern travel we have today. But our modern travel allows, things like these viruses to be spread all over the globe within a matter of days or weeks now.
Yeah, what are a lot of governments saying right now? I mean, to stop the spread, they're saying to stay home and don't travel.
Soon, I guarantee you're going to see, policy and regulations put in place by multiple countries that's going to try to attempt to, slow travel in the future to prevent spread of future viruses. And things like virus surveillance and early warning measures are going to be put in place to, as soon as there's some sort of health outbreak, they're going to lock down travel, shut things down very quickly to try to not have the spread of the virus like we did with this current one. So for example, what we have right now: social distancing, mask wearing, temperature checks and infrared cameras at airports and ports of entry. And I even think you're going to be seeing more and more biometric technology incorporated into airports and ports of entry. That's going to become the standard practice across the world when it comes to travel.
Number 3, remote and less touristy travel will become more trendy. I know that when we lived overseas, we did this on purpose. We would avoid the touristy spots, and instead we'd go find those towns and villages that no one had ever heard of. And we'd eat at restaurants where maybe they had a family recipe that had been in the family for generations. I remember it was really special, when the chef would come to our table to personally see if we were enjoying our meal.
Yeah, I remember one restaurant we went to as well. They said, "Hey, do you want to go see our wine cellar?" And so they took us down to the wine cellar and took us through a tour. We got to see, all sorts of 200-300-year-old bottles of wine and stuff that you have down there. And I really think those are the memories and the, experiences that we really cherish, not getting that perfect Instagram shot, in that touristy spot.
Right. You're going to see more people venturing off the beaten path, finding those hidden gems, instead of congregating in the touristy areas as much. And you're also going to see a trend then in more ecotourism, sustainability, and not damaging, those places where there's over-tourism.
Yeah, one of the things we're really excited about too is something that is called slow travel. And what slow travel is rather than going somewhere and just trying to see everything in a few days, you actually kind of spend a few months or even 6 months in a country, and you immerse yourself in the culture. You try to learn the local language. Maybe you even help out and you get a job, or you volunteer and try to improve that place that you're visiting rather than just being a tourist that comes in and takes and then leaves.
Remote work is only going to increase in the coming years. And that means we're not going to be tied down to a certain place for our employment. As long as you have an internet connection, you should be good.
And honestly, I think what you're going to see is people that live in very expensive areas like New York City or San Francisco, they're probably most likely going to say, hey, if I can remotely work, get my same salary, but live somewhere on 1/4 of what it costs to live in those big cities, people are going to take that option. Now, I get it. I know there's people that love New York City and people that love San Francisco, and they're like, I'm never going to leave. But I guarantee there's going to be some people that say, hey, if I can work on the beach, but get my San Francisco salary, I'm going to do that.
As we move into 2021 and we start traveling more, we're going to show you what that can look like. Maybe living on a beach in the Caribbean, but maybe your job is actually back here in the U.S.
Yeah, and one of the things we're looking at too is there's maybe the option to be like a global snowbird is what we're calling it, where you may spend your summers in one country, and then when it gets cold, you go to a warmer climate and spend that in a different country. And we're really excited. We don't want to let the cat out of the bag right yet, but we got some really cool opportunities to maybe possibly work overseas into 2021 and beyond, and we're excited about that coming up, and we want to take you guys with and show you guys what that might look like as well.
The whole idea of this slow travel is really exciting for us because we want to be able to stay somewhere long enough to really build connections with people, build that community, instead of just going somewhere short term and just probably hitting the highlights and then leaving again.
So obviously there's going to be upsides and downsides to all of this, and we may like it, we may not, we may agree with this, we may not, But the one thing we really need to understand is we're going to have to embrace change and this new way of travel.
Yeah, if you're anything like us, this idea of being able to travel more and just work from anywhere is really exciting.
Yeah, depending on your background, your education, your experience, your skill sets, I mean, you could really position yourself to get ahead of some of these trends. And just imagine, think about it, maybe 12 or 24 months from now, you could be living and working remotely from a place like Costa Rica or Bali.
If you could travel or work from anywhere, where would you go? Would you stay local? Would you go remote? Or would you go exotic?
Well, what if you could work remotely and travel and at the same time maybe like help a village on the other side of the globe with their water sanitation or provide, micro business opportunities?
What if you worked remotely and you could go somewhere and adopt a little village and stay there with them and, maybe start a business there that could support their economy and the families that live there?
Yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas. So please leave your comments down below. Tell us what you would do. I mean, literally, just think about it, kind of dream and explore, and we would love to hear what your ideas might be.
The sky is the limit, guys. What would you do?